When you picture electric racing, you're probably thinking about mind-bending acceleration, right? Instant torque, incredible speed. But what if I told you the real race, the one that truly decides the winner, is happening somewhere you can't even see? Today, we're diving deep into the engineering specs to show you how these competitions have become an all-out digital war zone.
And this really hits the nail on the head. The entire game has changed. For decades, it was all about who could squeeze the most horsepower out of an engine. Now, it's about whose digital defenses are stronger. The fight has literally moved from the garage to the code base.
So how in the world did we get here? Well, modern race cars, especially the ones being built in the incredible proving grounds of Formula Student, have turned into what we engineers call software-defined vehicles. And that's not just some buzzword, it's a fundamental shift. It means the software running the car is just as important, maybe even more important than the physical parts you can touch. And look, the implications of this are just huge. Turning a car into a supercomputer on wheels lets you do amazing things. I mean, you can adjust torque to each wheel hundreds of times a second. It's incredible. But it also throws the door wide open to a whole new world of invisible threats. The kind of problems you just can't fix with a bigger wrench. Okay, so we're not just talking about vague risks here. We're talking about specific, named attacks that engineers have to plan for. It's almost like they're villains in a movie, and each one has to be systematically taken down in the design phase. Let's start with the one that sounds like it's straight out of a horror film, the ghost driver. So every modern car has an internal network, the CAN bus, that acts like its central nervous system. It carries every single command, from the brake pedal to the motor. Well, this attack hijacks that nervous system, letting a hacker become an invisible ghost, driving your car forward.
And how it works is actually kind of simple. It's terrifyingly logical. An attacker finds one little weak spot, maybe an unencrypted Wi-Fi link for the telemetry data. Through that door, they start blasting fake messages onto the network that scream, "Accelerate!" And because the old-school networks didn't verify who sent the message, the motor controller just does what it's told. And just like that, the person behind the wheel is no longer the driver. They're just a passenger.
Yeah, the stakes here could not be higher. This isn't about losing a few tenths of a second on a lap. The absolute worst-case scenario, the one outlined right in the engineering documents, is the car going to full power all on its own. It's a catastrophic safety failure, and it's exactly why you cannot separate cybersecurity from functional vehicle safety anymore. They are one and the same. But the danger isn't just out on the track. There's another nasty one called the thermal bomb. This one happens in the garage. An attacker tricks the battery management system into thinking the battery is empty even when it's full, so the charger just keeps pumping in energy, overcharging the cells and creating a huge risk of a fire, or worse, a thermal runaway.
Okay, so how do you possibly fight an enemy you can't see? You can't just build a thicker firewall. You have to completely change your thinking. You need a whole new security philosophy. And the top teams are borrowing a strategy straight from the biggest cybersecurity firms in the world.
It's a concept that is as powerful as it is simple. Zero trust. You start with the assumption that the bad guys are already inside your network, so you trust nothing. Every single message, every connection, every packet of data is treated as hostile until it can prove cryptographically that it's legitimate. It's a paranoid way to build a car for sure, but on this new battlefield, it's the only way to stay safe. So, how do you actually build a car like that? Well, you use something called zonal architecture. The best way to think about it is like a medieval castle. Right in the center, in the most secure keep, you have the crown jewels, the main vehicle controller and the battery management system. They're physically walled off. Then you have another ring for things like the pedals and dashboard. And on the absolute outside, exposed to the world, is your Wi-Fi, your telemetry, and everything coming from that zone is treated like an invading army. Nothing gets in without being challenged. All right, we've got the strategy. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's look at the actual blueprint, the tools and tactics these teams are using to build this digital fortress on wheels.
You can see it's a total overhaul. We're getting rid of the old open networks where everyone trusted everyone else. Instead, every single component has to prove its identity with a secret digital handshake. We're ditching flimsy software passwords for actual physical hardware vaults to store secrets. The whole philosophy shifts from assume it's friendly to prove you're not a threat.
And this defensive toolkit really comes down to three key things. First, the hardware security module, the HSM. Think of it as a tiny, uncrackable safe living on a chip that holds all the car's secret keys. Second, you've got secure onboard communication, or SecOC.
That's the secret handshake protocol that lets the motor know a command really came from the vehicle controller, and not some ghost. And finally, you have penetration testing. This is where you literally hire ethical hackers to try and break your own car to find the weaknesses before your rivals do.
Now you might be sitting there thinking, okay, this is pretty cool, but it's just for student race cars, right? The thing is, this high-stakes world of racing is basically a high-speed incubator for the exact same technology that is either already in your car or is coming to it very, very soon.
So is this just a fun little engineering challenge for college students? No way. Not even close.
Chew on this number for a second. 100 million. That's roughly how many lines of code are in a typical car you'd buy today. To put that in perspective, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner has a fraction of that. With that level of complexity, the exact same vulnerabilities we see on the racetrack absolutely exist in the car parked in your driveway. The digital battlefield isn't just at the track, it's everywhere.
And that really brings us to the biggest takeaway here. Formula Student isn't just a race series. It's a real-world R&D lab on wheels. The intense pressure of competition forces these brilliant young engineers to solve these cybersecurity problems head-on, and they are creating the systems and the security philosophies that are going to protect all of us in the connected cars of the future.
So I'll just leave you with this one thought. The next time you get in your car and push that start button, it's worth asking yourself, are you positive you're the only one in the driver's seat? The work being done today in these workshops is what's making sure the answer to that question is always yes.